What's up guys, this is the 11624 Monarch All-Court, which is one of the 3 paddles in the Monarch line. We've already done a review on the Jelly Bean, but several of you also wanted to see a full review of the All-Court as well. I won't be covering the control model on this channel because 11624 is going to be discontinuing all of their Kevlar paddles in the future, which will include the Monarch control. So let's get right into it. As a disclosure, 11624 did send these paddles to me for free, but they did not pay for this review. The review was not guaranteed. They had no input on the video, and all thoughts are my own. However, I do have an affiliate link and discount code in the description that helps support the channel when you use it at no extra cost to you. All right, the price of the Monarch All-Court is $139.99, but with discount code PBStudio, you can save $10 on your order. The rest of the specs are as follows. It's a 16mm thermoformed paddle, has an advertised grip length of 5.75 inches, but plays more like a 5.5 inch handle similar to a Volair Forza Mach 2. It has a grip circumference of 4.125 inches, a swing weight of 109, twist weight of 7.24, and the RPMs of my unit were 1910. The face layup also contains carbon fiber, fiberglass, and then a bottom layer of carbon fiber. So the specs of this paddle are pretty straightforward, and honestly, you're gonna find that there's a lot of overlap with the Jelly Bean. And if you compare it to the Jelly Bean, it's basically everything that was, but turned up a couple notches. It has more pop, it has more power, and it's also stiffer than the Jelly Bean. If you're already familiar with the Huarache X Control Plus that I reviewed earlier this year, it's basically that same paddle, just in a wide body shape, which means you're getting the same type of paddle with a larger sweet spot and faster hand speed at the net. So picking between them will ultimately come down to what type of shape you prefer as a player. I think both are really good, they just excel for different people. What I really like about the Monarch All-Court is that it isn't like a lot of wide body paddles where they're just really soft and only focused on control. I think for a lot of people, that's why they gravitate away from wide body paddles in the first place, and I don't think that the All-Court suffers from that same issue. Drives felt great, and I'm usually not driving the ball that much when I use a wide body paddle. If I had to place the All-Court on a spectrum of 2 other paddles from not very powerful to very powerful, it would be the Volair Forza Mach 2 16mm on the softer side, then the All-Court in the middle, and then if you wanted all gas and no brakes, you would have the Paddletech ESQC or ALWC. I think one of the best ways I can describe this paddle is that it's a player's paddle. And what I mean by that is it does the things that matter to most people really well without shifting too far toward control or power, or without sacrificing other things that people like, which is faster hand speed at the net, more spin, or a larger sweet spot. It's not going to give you a revolutionary design, it's not going to be the most powerful or the most spin, but it gives you just a little bit of everything and minimizes the things to complain about, which is more what I think people should be concerned with rather than just give me the absolute most power above everything else. The only thing that I would caution is that if you are someone who tends to pop the ball up with poppier paddles, you may want to be careful when choosing the All-Court. While it certainly isn't at extreme levels of pop like a ALWC 12.7mm, I could see where someone coming from a control paddle may have a harder time with the stiffer nature of this paddle. The only other thing I would say is if you are used to paddles that have a longer feeling dwell time, something on the softer side, rolls might feel a little bit harder on this paddle. Personally, it wasn't something that bothered me, but I could see where if you're coming from something softer, getting those rolls down and being able to add a lot of topspin at the kitchen may feel more difficult. Overall, I think this paddle fits me well because generally speaking, my play style falls into more of an all-court category. I'm definitely not a banger, but I also can't just sit around, reset a bunch of balls, and dink all day until someone misses a ball. So I think something in the all-court category fits my style really well, and I think that's one of the reasons I've gravitated towards paddles like this. I'm able to generate good offense when I need it, but I'm also not completely giving up my soft game either. One of the things that I love about standard and wide body shapes that are thermoformed is that the sweet spots tend to be oversized. This paddle is no exception. Just like the Monarch Jelly Bean, I feel like if you're having a hard time connecting with the sweet spot, probably just need to drill more. Every time I took this paddle out, I felt like it gave me plenty of margin for error, which made me feel even more confident on the court. And the less you can think about your equipment when you're playing, the better. Now, I will say if you're someone coming from tennis and used to hitting a sweet spot higher up on the face of your paddle, a wide body paddle might not actually feel like it has as large of a sweet spot as people tend to talk about. And that's because with wide bodies generally hitting the center center and then out toward the edges is pretty good, but if you're hitting higher up where you would on an elongated paddle, it's just not going to feel that great because you don't have that extra reach. So just keep in mind that if you're used to an elongated paddle, the sweet spot might not feel as nice as people talk about. One of the things that makes a wide body paddle so appealing right now is that they're very stable in stock form, but the swing weight is also very low. This means it will be very fast at the net in case that's something you really care about. Additionally, even better is that since the swing weight starts so low, you can kind of customize these paddles however you want before it gets out of hand. With some of the elongated paddles on the market, they start so high for swing weight that you don't have a lot of options to customize it before it starts to feel too heavy. The main change that I made was using some of the Pickleball Effect 0.5 gram per inch tungsten tape and putting it at 3 and 9 o'clock on the paddle. I used about 5-inch strips on both sides, and this adds about 0.17 ounces to the paddle. I did this mostly just to give the paddle a little bit more plow through, which was the same reason that I mentioned on the Jelly Bean review. The paddle is already really stable, so I didn't add the weight because I felt like it was twisting too much in my hand. I just wanted something when I went for a drive for the paddle to feel like it was pushing the ball around rather than the ball pushing the paddle around. And this only bumped the swing weight up to 111 from 109. So I could have added even more weight in different spots if I really wanted to customize how this paddle felt. And I think that's a big reason someone may want to consider a paddle like this. Anyways, some other changes that I made that you definitely don't have to do are I added a full ounce slice cap to the handle. And this was mostly for when I was testing out the slice caps just to get an idea of how I felt about them. I didn't really do this because the paddle felt too head heavy. I was just trying it out on elongated paddles and then standard shaped, and that's why one ended up on this paddle. So definitely don't feel like you have to do that. In fact, I would probably not recommend putting one on this paddle. After that, I did also add a pink Hessicore to the paddle. This is something that I've been doing to most of my paddles, but it's purely just for a texture thing on the handle and not something that you need to do for performance. After all of these modifications, the paddle stats came out like this. It has a static weight of 9.2 ounces, a swing weight of 111, and a twist weight of 7.8. To be honest, I really couldn't tell that this paddle weighed 9.2 ounces. When I finally checked the weight, I almost couldn't believe it was that heavy because it really doesn't feel heavy, and it still feels plenty fast in the hand. Truly, I think this paddle plays great in its stock form. So don't feel like you have to do any of these modifications, especially the slice cap and Hessicore. The adjustments will largely come down to preferences of how you want the paddle to play, but I do think bumping up the swing weight slightly is a nice benefit if you're not solely focused on just trying to have really fast hands at the net. All right, to wrap things up, the Monarch line of paddles are some of the best price to performance ratio paddles this year. Being able to pick up an all court at $130 after discount is an exceptionally good deal for a paddle of this performance. The person that I think this paddle is going to be most ideal for is someone who wants to graduate from a Volair Forza Mach 2 16mm. If you've loved that shape but just wanted it to have more pop and power, that is what the Monarch All Court is. It feels like the most no-brainer transition to get a similar shape but with more pop and power. Now, if you don't like the following 3 traits in paddles, then I wouldn't recommend the Monarch All Court for you. If you don't like wide bodies, you aren't a fan of longer handles, and you don't like stiffer feeling paddles. Also, if you are more of a banger, you'd probably be better fitted to a Scorpius 3S or a Paddletech ALWC or ESQC. Similarly, if you prefer more control-oriented standard and wide body shapes, you'd probably want to look into the Pickle Hurricane Pro 16mm, Jelly Bean 16mm, or Volair Forza Mach 2 16mm. Like I said before, this isn't a paddle that's going to rock the market, but I do think it will create a name for itself for those who love wide bodies and are wanting to add more aggression to their game without sacrificing all of their touch. It fits a good spot in the market at a fantastic price that's hard to argue with. So there you guys go. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like the video and leave a comment down below, and I'll catch you in the next one.